Today we're going to one of the world's most visited countries, known as the heart of fashion, art, and democracy, France. But today, we're not going to the Eiffel Tower. We're teleporting to those dark, dusty, war-torn years where it all began, 1,500 years ago. Just imagine, the mighty Roman Empire has collapsed. Europe is in total chaos. Barbarian tribes are fighting for power everywhere. So, how did modern-day France emerge from this turmoil? According to historians, this question has only one answer: Clovis I. If you're ready to hear how a young boy who ascended the throne at just 15 years old, united the tribes, and laid the foundations of an entire nation, let's begin. The Franks, a people emerging from Rome's shadow. In the 4th century AD, the eastern borders of Gaul along the Rhine River were ruled by Germanic tribes. Among these communities, the most influential were the Franks, who also gave France its ancient name, Franci. However, the Franks were just one of dozens of Germanic communities at that time. So how did the Franks become one of the most powerful communities in Western Europe? To see how this happened, we need to look at the time when the Romans and Germans first made contact. That is, the 1st century BC. In the 1st century BC, Gaul was conquered by the Roman general Gaius Julius Caesar. From this moment on, the Rhine River became the border between Rome and the Germanic communities. The Romans entered into a power struggle with the Germans beyond the river that would continue for centuries. The Franks were one of the Germanic groups living there, and like other Germanic communities, they were in conflict with the Romans. However, by the 4th century, the Franks' relationship with Rome took on a completely different character. In 358, the Salian Franks, a branch of the Franks, allied with Rome. But this alliance wasn't a submission, it was a strategic move. Through this, the Franks obtained permission to settle in Rome's Belgica Secunda province. The Salian Franks settled in this province, establishing a kingdom centered in the capital Tournai, and promised to provide military support to the Romans when needed. A young king, the rise of Clovis, who was born about 100 years after the Salian Franks made this agreement with the Romans, is today considered one of the most important figures in French history. Because Clovis would transform the Franks from a small-scale community, organized as tribes, into one of the most powerful states of the period, and lay the foundations of modern-day France. So who was this Clovis? Clovis was born approximately in 466 AD. His father Childeric was the king of the Salian Franks. Childeric took care to maintain the alliance with the Romans during the early years of his rule. But by 472, the Burgundian kingdom and the Visigoths had captured Rome's territories in Gaul. In 476, the last Western Roman emperor Romulus Augustulus was deposed by the Germanic Flavius Odoacer. Thus, the Western Roman Empire had fallen. 5 years after this event, in 481, Childeric died, and his son Clovis ascended to the throne. Clovis desired to expand his country's territories by taking advantage of the opportunities created after Rome's withdrawal from the region. But when he ascended to the throne, he was just a 15-year-old, inexperienced young man. Given his age, he first needed to make his nobles and people accept his power. During the first 5 years of his reign, he consolidated his authority in his country and completed his preparations. First victory: the fall of the Kingdom of Soissons. By 486, he decided to attack his southern neighboring kingdom to prove himself against external forces. The kingdom of Soissons was ruled by a man named Syagrius. Syagrius's father, Aegidius, was the governor of the Western Roman Empire's Gallic province and had declared independence in 461, seizing the opportunity as the Western Roman Empire's authority in the region waned. Clovis had strengthened his position among the Franks over the years, but defeating the kingdom of Soissons single-handedly would not be so easy. To defeat Syagrius, he needed support. Therefore, he made attempts to form an alliance with King Ragnachar of Cambrai and Cararisk, who is believed to have been the king of the city of Tongeren. Actually, Ragnachar and Cararisk were kings of different Frankish groups, and both were close relatives of his. Ragnachar did not reject Clovis's request for help and agreed to support him. In contrast, Cararisk rejected this request because he was not sure the battle could be won. But this rejection would bring great troubles to Cararisk in the future. The united Frankish forces and Syagrius's army met near the city of Soissons in 486. In the battle fought, both sides suffered heavy losses, but at the end of the combat, it was the Franks who remained on the battlefield. Syagrius, realizing he would be defeated, fled and took refuge with the Visigothic king Alaric, hoping to get help to save his kingdom. However, Alaric did not want to fight the Franks. So instead of helping Syagrius, he captured him and then sent him to Clovis. Clovis had his enemy executed and seized the territories of the kingdom of Soissons, including Paris. With this victory, the Franks, under Clovis's leadership, began to expand their borders to the south. However, they needed allies to maintain their position in the region. Faith and power, conversion to Christianity. For this purpose, Clovis married Clotilde, the niece of Burgundian king Gundobad, in 493. However, this political marriage would create an unexpected transformation in Clovis's life. Clotilde, unlike her husband, was a Catholic Christian. When their first child Ingomer was born, Clotilde insisted that the child be baptized as a Christian, and as a result of her insistence, the baby was baptized. But Ingomer contracted a serious illness shortly after birth and lost his life. Clovis, who was pagan, thought the child died because he was baptized. When their second son Clodomir was born, Clotilde insisted that this child also be baptized, and this insistence was accepted after a certain period. Clodomir was baptized. Just like the previous baby, he contracted an illness, but survived it by overcoming the disease. During this process, Clotilde constantly encouraged her husband to become Christian. His wife's influence on Clovis had warmed him to Christianity over time. But Clovis's full conversion to Christianity would occur after the war with the Alemanni. The Battle of Tolbiac, a prayer of victory. The Alemanni, a Germanic tribal confederation, had been experiencing border disputes with the Ripuarian Franks under King Sigebert's rule for some time, and were constantly conducting raids on the regions under Frankish control. By 496, the Alemanni attacked Sigebert's kingdom with a large force. Upon this, Sigebert requested help from Clovis. Clovis responded positively to this request for help and set out with an army to fight the Alemanni. The armies of Clovis and Sigebert met the Alemanni army at the Battle of Tolbiac. According to the historian Gregory, the Franks had suffered very heavy losses in the battle. Clovis became desperate in the face of this situation and finally decided to pray to Jesus, whom his wife had constantly told him about. Shortly after this prayer ended, the Franks gained the upper hand on the battlefield. The king of the Alemanni died on the battlefield, and his men surrendered to Clovis. As a result, Clovis attributed this victory to his prayer to Jesus and was baptized in Rheims on Christmas of 496, a few months after the battle, along with about 3,000 of his soldiers. But could there be a more pragmatic truth behind historian Gregory's romantic account? Historians' estimates on this subject offer us a different perspective. One of the most common views is that Clovis's wife caused him to become Christian. However, according to another view, the support of Christian states was much more critical. As a Christian fighting against pagan peoples, Clovis could strengthen his hand. Clovis had needed such support in his campaign against the Alemanni. Despite all these estimates, what exactly caused Clovis's conversion to Christianity cannot be known due to the inadequacy of historical records. But one thing is certain: this transformation would shape Clovis's future. The Burgundian adventure. Brothers' quarrel. Around the year 500, an unexpected opportunity arose for Clovis. God-Giselle, the brother of Burgundian king Gundobad, wanted to rebel against the king and seize the Burgundian throne. However, accomplishing this was quite difficult. Therefore, he decided to ask Clovis for help. God-Giselle sent envoys offering to pay him annual tribute in exchange for supporting him against Gundobad. Clovis knew that this dispute between the two brothers would be to his advantage. So he accepted the offer and entered Burgundy with his army, joining forces with God-Giselle's army. The armies of God-Giselle, supported by Clovis, and Gundobad's army, met near the city of Dijon. The winners of the battle were Clovis and God-Giselle, who had numerical superiority. Gundobad retreated to the city of Avignon after the defeat. Clovis followed him and besieged the city. God-Giselle separated from Clovis with his army and set out to besiege Vienne, the capital of Burgundy. However, seeing that his brother's army had separated from Clovis's army, Gundobad made an offer to Clovis in the hope of making a deal with him. According to the offer, if Clovis lifted the siege and returned to his country, Gundobad would give him the annual tribute he wanted. Clovis's real aim was to receive annual tribute from the Burgundian kingdom. It didn't matter to him who sat on the Burgundian throne. So he accepted Gundobad's offer and lifted the siege, returning to his country. Gundobad defeated his brother God-Giselle's army and had him executed, becoming the sole ruler of his country. Thus, Burgundy became a kingdom paying tribute to the Franks. Holy War against the Visigoths. By 507, Clovis decided to launch a campaign against the Visigoths this time. Visigothic King Alaric II had previously established good relations with him by surrendering Syagrius to Clovis. The peace between the two states was maintained during the period until 507, except for minor border conflicts. However, the internal turmoil that had recently broken out in the Visigothic country offered Clovis the opportunity to easily capture Visigothic territories, and Clovis was quite willing to take advantage of this opportunity. But Clovis had another trump card. Visigothic King Alaric accepted the Arian doctrine of Christianity. This doctrine rejected Christianity's belief in the Trinity and argued that Jesus was a mortal being created by God. However, Arianism was quite a dangerous view at that time, because Arian doctrine was seen as heresy by Catholics. Therefore, many Catholics in the Visigothic country were uncomfortable with Alaric's rule. During this process, Clovis, as a Catholic Christian, had begun to be seen as a savior by the Catholics in the Visigothic country and wanted to use this situation to his advantage. Taking all this into account, Clovis launched a campaign against the Visigoths in 507. To gain the support of Catholics in enemy territories, he had forbidden his soldiers to plunder. In this way, he would present himself not as an invader, but as a savior. Eventually, the Frankish army and the Visigothic army met at the Battle of Vouillé. In this battle, the Visigoths suffered a heavy defeat, and their king Alaric lost his life on the battlefield. With this victory, Clovis had captured the region from south of the Loire River to the Pyrenees Mountains. With the region obtained after the battle, much of modern-day French territory was actually under Clovis's control. Blood and cunning, completing Frankish unity. However, the Franks still had not united under the rule of a single king. King Sigebert of the Ripuarian Franks and Clovis's relatives Ragnachar and Chararik continued to rule as kings of different Frankish communities. Clovis knew this situation would damage his authority in the future. If his country fell into a weak state in the future, these Frankish kingdoms could unite against him and pose a great threat. To prevent this, he needed to unite all the Franks under his own rule. But how would he do this? Clovis first contacted King Sigebert's son Cloderic and began to incite him to kill his father and become the new king. Upon this, Cloderic took action, commissioned 2 assassins to kill his father, and sent a messenger to Clovis asking him to send his soldiers to take his share of his father's treasure. Clovis sent his soldiers. However, their purpose was not to take a share of the treasure. Clovis had ordered his soldiers to kill Cloderic. When the Frankish soldiers appeared before Cloderic, they found an opportunity and successfully completed this task. So Clovis's plan had worked like clockwork, but he had one more thing to do. After Cloderic's death, Clovis came to the region and conveyed to the tribal chiefs loyal to Cloderic his concern about the death of their king Sigebert. He told them that Cloderic, who killed Sigebert, had been punished by himself and suggested that the people here come under his protection. The tribal chiefs, whose king and prince had been killed, had no choice but to come under Clovis's rule. Thus, Clovis had made the Ripuarian Franks subject to him without entering into any battle. After all this, it was the turn of Cararic, another Frankish king. Cararic, despite being Clovis's relative, had not supported him in the war with the kingdom of Soissons. Clovis could not risk such a situation happening again, meaning he needed to eliminate Cararic. For this purpose, he captured Cararic and his son and confined both of them to a monastery. However, after a while, rumors began to spread that Cararic was planning to escape from the monastery and take revenge. Upon this, Clovis ordered his execution to ensure his safety. After Cararic's death, King Ragnachar of Cambrai remained. Ragnachar was Clovis's relative and had supported Clovis in the war with Soissons. Despite this, he was actually the greatest threat to Frankish unity. After Clovis became Christian and was baptized, a significant portion of his soldiers had abandoned him to join Ragnachar, who was a pagan. Because of this, Clovis first captured the Frankish kings he thought were weak, leaving Ragnachar for last. First, to weaken Ragnachar's power, he sent valuable goods to the tribal chiefs loyal to Ragnachar and asked them to join him. The tribal chiefs accepted these gifts and decided to side with Clovis, whom they thought had a higher chance of winning the war. This situation brought about Ragnachar's end. He was defeated as a result of the wars he entered with Clovis and was finally killed. His territories and subjects joined Clovis's great kingdom. Thus, all the Franks united under the rule of a single man, namely Clovis. The birth of a nation. Before Clovis, the Franks were a warrior community living under Roman dominance. With the withdrawal of the Western Roman Empire from the historical stage, the Franks, like other Germanic tribes, found the opportunity to expand their territories. But under Clovis's leadership, they succeeded in becoming one of Europe's most important powers by defeating other communities in the region one by one. In a short time, they would mix with the Gauls, the local population of the region, adopt Roman culture, and lay the foundations of modern-day French society. The dynasty to which Clovis belonged was called the Merovingians, after the name of his grandfather, Merovech. This dynasty ruled the Frankish kingdom between the 5th and 8th centuries. Charlemagne, the famous king of the Franks, who marked a turning point in the formation of modern France, belonged to the Carolingian dynasty that rose from the mid-8th century. Charlemagne's empire covered much of Europe. This empire was considered a new Roman Empire, with Christian identity at the forefront. After Charlemagne's death in 814, his only surviving son, Louis the Pious, ascended to the throne. But with Louis's death in 840, the empire was divided among his 3 sons. After 3 years of civil wars and chaos, his son signed the Treaty of Verdun. With this treaty, the empire was divided into 3 parts, covering the territories of modern-day Germany, France, and Italy. One of Louis's sons, Charles the Bald, received West Francia. This kingdom would in time be called France. And thus, the kingdom founded by an inexperienced young man who ascended the throne at age 15 grew over the centuries to become the France we all know today. Clovis was not just a conqueror, he was a nation builder, a leader who united territories with his sword, people with his faith, and rivals with his intelligence. This is where the story of France begins, with his story.